going to start in just a few moments. So we'll assemble together. We're going to ask you to put yourselves on mute, please, so we avoid the background noise coming in. Thank you so very much. And we're going to be starting, Barry, you can start counting down to get us going. Okay, folks. All right, we got that fixed really quickly. So it's a pleasure to welcome all of you here this evening. My name is Dale Campbell. We are thrilled. This is our 67th Natural Health Meetup. And I just am thrilled to recognize that as we transitioned from in-person meetings earlier in the spring of last year, we have gotten very comfortable with this, and just very excited that you're all on this evening. In the process of getting us started here, just like to introduce ourselves again for those who may be here for the very first time. Natural Health Learn and Share Meetup of Downers Grove. It's also an outreach ministry for our church, the All Nations Fellowship Church, and the members of the All Nations Fellowship Seventh-day Adventist Church actually sponsor this and host this. And it's a real pleasure for us to do that as we fulfill the mission of our corporation to reach into the community to help make the lives of people better as a result of having met us. As natural health enthusiasts, we have a core group, Don Hall, Serena Scott, and myself. We meet weekly to be able to plan and strategize and help with engagement strategies and so on. And it's a real pleasure for us as a team. Feel free if anyone is interested in joining us or even making suggestions, we ask that you let us know. I have just a quick disclaimer. I won't read this all, but just so that you are aware that we cannot in any way give medical advice. Even our presenters who may be qualified clinicians, without the doctor-patient relationship, this is not something that could result over the call here in our Natural Health Meetup. Please also note that we do have a protocol. We ask that you keep your microphones on mute. There will be time for questions and answers, and at that time, feel free to unmute. We have in, what is this, a tool, I guess, or a worksheet or something of that nature that allows you to be able to connect with us after. We will provide a so that you can get these different ways of reaching out to us. And we're testing a new format. This is the first time that we've ever done it. We didn't really run through with it, but I think it should work fine. Uh, we'll have our welcome as we're doing right now, and prayer, of course. We'll do our disclaimers as I've already done. And we are going to attempt to do polls and activities and maybe some role plays and so on as we go through our various upcoming sessions. We are here to educate and to share our knowledge to help each one so that you can be healthier tomorrow than you are today, every single day. Let's bow our heads for a word of prayer. Pastor Atkins, could you lead us out, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this opportunity to come together to learn more about this created being that we are. We are fearfully and wonderfully made. And the mind, the brain is a complex and intricate organ of the body that we try to figure out. There are not enough transistors that we can put on a chip to actually simulate the human brain. So, Father, we pray tonight for understanding and wisdom, and help us, O Lord, to learn something new about this great created organ that we have in our heads. Is my prayer in Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so very much for that. We have our prayer done. And what I'd like to do at this time, before we actually get into presentations, I'd like to announce that tonight we'll have a poll. It's a poll and kind of a quiz at the same time. So we'll deploy that here in just a moment. But before we actually deploy the poll, I would like to just mention our speakers and presenters tonight. I have put our second presenter first. And so she's going to be Miss Serena Scott. She's a certified master herbalist. And she is going to share with us some insights about herbs and the brain. And that will come after Dr. Thomas. Dr. Thomas, patient, you saw this out there. What's nutrition got to do with brain health and mental health, and all the wonderful benefits of improved memory, amazing cognition, and so on. And Dr. Thomas, after our poll, will also be able to share a bit more about himself. But I will tell you this, that Dr. Thomas, it's probably close to plus 30 plus years that I met you the first time. And at that time, I was a pharmaceutical sales rep knocking on doors, talking to doctors. And it's been a real pleasure working with you more recently on special projects with natural health and different product lines that we have you here tonight. So I'd just like to let you know that you're welcome. I know that you're a member of our natural health meetup site. So you're a part of the family already. And we'll be able to hear a bit from Dr. Thomas as well as our key presenter tonight. I am going to entertain at this time our poll, or deploy the poll. And it's, so I'm going to tell you there are 5 questions, and we're going to give you just about 3 minutes to answer them. So don't think too hard, and these are anonymous, so your names will not show up in any way, and then we'll take a quick look at the poll. So please take a look at your screens, and as we launch the poll, and you should see that coming up there. And the timer is running. On a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to turn to nutrition for solutions to mental health for a loved one? A 1 would be I'd never even think of it, and 10, extremely likely. Second question, in a casual conversation with a friend, how many herbs could you name that are known for benefits relating to brain and mental health. It's a 0, so that you don't have any idea. 1 herb, greater than 1 herb, or greater than 5. Question number 3. In recent years, what percentage of the US population do you think is considered as having mental health issues? Approximately 3%, approximately 10%, approximately 15%, approximately 18%. Question number 4. Which ethnic population in the US do you think has the highest percentage of mental health concerns? Asian, Black, white, Hispanic. Okay, and the last question, question 5. What types of foods do you think are great for dealing with mental depression? And we copied these 2 responses from Psychiatry Research, actual journal, and be interesting to see what your thoughts are on that. I think the answer will be pretty obvious.
The poll disappeared, Dale.
Okay, so the poll disappeared, so we're going to share results. I hope that everybody had a chance to answer. And let's see here. So you'll be able to see how you answered. So let's see. Okay, so Sarah, you're on the line. You may need to help me out. How do I see the results, or I don't?
Actually, I was just typing to you privately in chat. I was able to see the first 3 questions, but then it disappeared. So I'm wondering if you want to relaunch it.
Okay, all right.
Because I see that others are saying in chat too that they don't see the poll.
All right, fantastic. So let's try it. So this is our first time. Thank you. We're going to relaunch the poll and just go ahead and answer them all the way through. I won't read them again. There we go. All right, fantastic. We got 12 participants responding. So we wait for a couple more, I think. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end our polling. So it looks pretty good, actually. You guys have a chance to see, I think the main question that I would respond to is just the 50% of you responded that you would actually be very extremely likely to think of nutrition. And that's pretty good, really good. And let's see, it is the correct answer. 42% of you got that for question 4, which is white. And let's see, question 5. Which types of foods do you think are great for dealing with mental depression? Okay. All right. So you guys got 100% there on that. So fantastic. Thank you for participating in the poll. And so we're going to end polling and we'll move right along. So Dr. Thomas, I believe that you have a real solid background. I would love for you to mention for just a moment, if you don't mind, because you mentioned a very important change in your medical practice just recently when I called you a few weeks ago. I'm pretty excited about that. And I'm just wondering if you might share that as part of your introduction tonight. You're on mute, I think. Yeah, you're still on mute.
Okay, I should be off mute now.
Yes, you are. Yes. Fantastic.
Okay. Well, thanks for the invitation. I always like sharing information, and I always learn from every situation, because when that's your mindset, new things appear, new associations, and new friends. So I appreciate the offer. I have recently, as a board certified obstetrician gynecologist I've been a doctor for 40 years, delivering babies for 36. I decided, and it just so happened this way, that February 14th, I did my last delivery. Well, last delivery of my own patient. So I retired from that part of practice to try to take care of my own personal needs, such as sleep and less stress, but also to have time to do things like this without being interrupted, and to present to still my patient population the information I received when studying for my master's in nutrition and metabolic medicine. So I'm very excited about that because it presents a wealth of, I won't say new information, because one group would say there's nothing new under the sun, but it might be new to a few people here and there. And we hope that it sparks the most important thing that we forget about, which is your imagination. So with your imagination and creativity, you connect to something on a much deeper level. And I highly recommend to my patients to seek out their own wise mind. So the wise mind is a concept where you connect to something much deeper. And I'm excited because I now have the opportunity to do things on the to affect more people with the latest information regarding nutrition and health. And nutrition and mental health is an area that I'm very excited about, as we talk, because I was saying every single neurotransmitter, how your brain functions, is made from the food you eat. And the book that I'm completing, Scarless Healing, outlines how every single illness, in my opinion, that's preventable is due to stress, toxins, and deficiencies. So if you don't have enough of a certain food, like amino acids, that gets transferred or made into neurotransmitters like serotonin, then that person is more likely to have depression. And in fact, one of the articles, I'm going to just read off. It says nearly 1 in 4 Americans have some type of mental illness each year. That's 25%. That's a little more than 18%. The CDC says by 2020, this is an old article, depression will rank as the second leading cause of disability after heart disease. And so one of my missions, to sort of take a quick tangent, is to help my colleagues realize that even heart doctors, their major cause of death is heart disease. And so here are the experts that, because of the lack of information about nutrition, they're completely unaware that you can reverse heart disease with nutrition. And most people think exercise will help with heart disease, and exercise never helps with heart disease. So we're not going to really talk about that, but that's the number one cause of disability. Number two cause is depression, and that likewise is helped by nutrition. In fact, they say half of all long-term mental disorders start by age 14. So in most cases, you have 14 years of these kids nowadays, and it affects more than 17 million kids who are eating the wrong food, and it's contributing, not 100%, but it's contributing. And the recent study shows your risk of depression increases 80% when you compare teens with the lowest quality diet, which we call the Western diet, or some people call it the SAD diet, the standard American diet. When you compare it, if you get a high quality whole food diet, 80% difference, and attention deficit disorder doubles. So I mention that because it's the most important different perspective. And in fact, the American Psychiatric Division never considered nutrition up until the last 3 or 4 years. So I was privileged. I did a residency in OB-GYN. We rotated through St. Elizabeth Hospital, which is a psychiatric hospital in Washington, D.C. And it turns out that what, I thought the head psychiatrist had individuals, one guy in particular, a 30-year-old who was using cocaine, came in a state where he didn't know who he was. I didn't understand at that time, why did he spend so much time talking about nutrition? This is my psychiatric rotation. He's talking about nutrition. He's saying you need fresh fruit and vegetables. He's saying you need to eat, a healthier diet. And, so the guy explained that if he could convert that guy, he didn't say it this way because maybe they didn't know, but if he's getting dopamine and getting a predilection to being addicted, you could easily become addicted to a healthy diet and become, call it a health food nut. And that would totally change the person's focus. And he said he had had more success with that than any medication he had used.
Wow.
So, that started my inquisitive mind looking into it. In fact, I got a Joseph Collins scholarship in psychiatry during my rotation because I was so interested. But in terms of practice, OB-GYN, went out because hands down, OB-GYN is the best area to practice in, at least for a period of time. So I mention that as background because today, majority of physicians had not been trained with any significant degree of nutrition. So it's going to take each individual patient to introduce that idea, to do research on their own. And in fact, each patient has to take responsibility for their own health if they expect to have the best health, because we're at a point in time where we're making a transition and the individual has to do the research, which I encourage, and take time. So with that, Dale, I think I should share the screen so I can show you some background information.
Please go right ahead. Yes, it's all set for you to share.
Okay.
It's coming up. Here you go.
Okay, so I can do F5 in here. So I'm going to skip a little. I like to start off with the idea that there are certain things in the world that we may or may not be able to see clearly. And this quote, I love it because it says, if you could see the miracle of a single flower clearly, our whole life would be changed. And that's referring to the Buddha and his student, and also the sermon in which the lily of the field was mentioned. So we're going to skirt past that to here. I like to ask my students, how old do they think they are? And most of the time I get their driver's license age. Then I ask them, well, how many cells, or show me some part of your skin here and there. Show me something that's that age. So let's say the person says they're 50. What is there that's been there since birth? And except for 3 areas, everything has changed every 7 to 10 years. So what I'd like to do is show one thing. Do you see just a slide, or you see a picture with the slide?
I see just the slide,
Okay.
just the text.
Yeah, good. Okay. So this is a matter of confirming you're fearfully and wonderfully made. To start off with, how many atoms in the human body? So the answer is right here in the middle of the page. 7 followed by 27 zeros. So I can't even tell you what that number is, but millions and billions and trillions is here, and you got basically a million trillion, or 7 million trillion. In other words, the first answer is a good one. Would you settle for a whole bunch? So here's the actual number, and 98% of the atoms in your body are exchanged with new atoms every year. So what that means is, in terms of the atoms in your body, you're less than a year old. So if we then go to your cells, those are changed every 7 to 10 years. And this is important. If it's changing, then what do you need for them to change? And it's adequate nutrition. And that's where we're going to, tie that into neuroscience, that you need certain ones for you to have your body reproduce in a manner where it's at the highest and best health. I did have my training in nutrition at San Francisco. Anyone know Dean Marion Nessel? She's now in New York. Very well-known nutritionist. And the first step in understanding that the brain has neurotransmitters, I'm not going to get into details about how neurotransmitters are made, they're stored, and then they're released when the nerve fires, or the axon fires, and they send out the neurotransmitters that then communicates with dozens and dozens or thousands of other ones. But suffice it to say, all neurotransmitters are made from the food that we eat. So imbalances will influence our mental health. Nutrition and mood. It's like an example, just because your oil in your car is low, your car will not stop immediately from working. And likewise, it takes years of non-nutritious eating to experience a physical health consequence. But our mental and emotional health, or wealth, are immediately affected. So poor mood or behavior may be the first sign of nutritional deficiency, and that can happen right after you eat. That can be why kids in school, after lunch, the teachers say they always have more problems after lunch because they're eating junk food. And I point out that this isn't a misspelling, because somewhere else I'll point out that health is actually your first wealth, because without that wealth, you don't have health. So this incorporates both as one. I'm going to go straight to like some recommendations or suggestions, because the most common nutritional deficiency seen in patients with mental health disorders is omega-3 fatty acids, vitamin B vitamins that are missing, and minerals and amino acids. So these are the deficiencies that can cause a problem. And you also can have too much of something causing a problem. So we'll get into some of that detail, but I want to mention right up front that since DHA, part of the omega-3 family, is the most abundant in the brain, it's needed for every single cell in the brain and for the connections and for the cell membranes, that since, in my opinion, most people are deficient, everyone could benefit from omega-3 supplementation, primarily because fast food and processed food has an abundance of omega-6. Omega-6 is so inflammatory, it actually causes inflammation and can cause damage in the brain and other places. So we now know that that is a big issue that is that you can mitigate. We'll get into some of these details a little further. What else is linked with it? One of the conditions that we would see is during pregnancy.
Now, and that causes inflammation, and that causes you to be crazy. So what you eat and drive you crazy.
So major depression, bipolar disorder, anxiety, stress, attention deficit, schizophrenia, memory and cognitive problems, and including suicide prevention, has all been proven by multiple studies to be influenced by the omega-3 fats. And anxiety can be caused by food intolerances, such as the casein, which is the main protein in milk, and gluten, which is the main protein in wheat. So these have been proven to increase the likelihood of anxiety, and it's also the microbiome is the correct or helpful bacteria that are in your gut. And so when you have a microbiome dysfunction, you have a lack of healthy gut bacteria, and you can have the overgrowth of candida that changes it. This is so important because it's now known as a fact that the gut has bacteria that signal the brain. And I found it interesting. I wonder how many people who are listening have had the urge and then they go to the refrigerator and just open the door and look. Does anyone that happen to anybody besides me? So when I was reading the paper, it said that when you have an urge to eat that simple sugar, or what I call the junk food, that's actually being mediated by the bacteria that's in your gut that's sending a signal to your brain by way of the vagus nerve. And that's who's dictating what you should eat. And so that urge actually goes away if you have the right bacteria in the gut. And in fact, they did bacterial transplant in certain cases where they put the right bacteria in someone and those urges and problems they were having went away. So it's very interesting when you look at the science of it. They also looked at if a person has low levels of essential fatty acids and total cholesterol, they had a greater risk for suicide. And they found that watching, controlled trials, the part of the trial that got the fatty acid had much reduced suicide rates. So they concluded it's very beneficial to change their fatty acids, get them omega-6, get the meat, fruit, and fish or vegetables that may have it. Same thing, it really helped recovery from addiction if they had better nutrition and correction of magnesium deficiency and thiamine deficiency and others. There's a paper, which we'll just go through the slide, but I have the paper from a 10-year herbal medicine review of psychiatric disorders. And this was, peer-reviewed, controlled trials, and it showed that for anxiety disorder, here are the things that help reduce anxiety disorder: kava, passion fruit, galima, And for major depression, St. John's wort and saffron. And for depression, curcumin. So there's so much packed into this. I wanted to, quickly go through a review because from the physician point of view, their training from 10, 20, in my case, 30 years ago, did not include nutrition as a factor in mental health. Other than we telling pregnant women you should eat from the 4 food groups, the science was not available at that time. But if you look at it now, and I would, quiz the audience, what are the macronutrients? So does anyone know what they call the macronutrients are? I know.
Fat, protein, and carbs.
Say that again.
Fat, protein, carbs.
Yep.
Yeah. So what are the micronutrients?
Micro is iron and magnesium and calcium and.
So those are the minerals. So you got minerals, vitamins, essential fatty acids, and essential amino acids.
Mhm.
So pretty much that was like it. But the whole category that's being missed is the bigger name for it is called polyphenols. So polyphenols are the substance that give all the fruit and vegetables multiple colors. And so the polyphenols, for an example, something like curcumin and the flavonoids, those are the things that the body uses as part of how it heals itself and is a dominant part of what's missing if you limit your eating to what I'm gonna call again the Western diet or the standard American diet. And so understanding that aspect, you will hear or see for the last 5 or so years, they'll say you need to eat not just from the 5 food groups or the 4 food groups, you need to eat all of the colors of the rainbow and so forth. So they're beginning to say it without saying it, that the research is done. The polyphenols are one of the most important part of what was skipped in terms of macronutrients versus micronutrients, because this segment was not known to have that much of an effect.
Wow.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying we've covered that there are mental health disorders and that the supplements definitely reduce the symptoms, and the neurotransmitters are made from amino acids. And so what we have is a situation where, well, I'll pick another one that's not on the screen. Obsessive compulsive disorder. They looked at it and found that when treatments such as vitamin D, B12, folic acid, trace elements, and N-Acetylcysteine, glycine, St. John's wort, milk thistle, valerium, curcumin, and borage were all found to be effective. And their conclusion is these need to be studied in more detail because they either work as well or better than like the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors or SSRIs, which have a host of possible complications that the food, does not have. So if you're taking in a food that increases your serotonin, that will work better than a drug that increases it because you don't have the same side effects. The vitamin D is important in terms of immunity modulation, inflammatory response, and antioxidant processes. And so if you don't have that and the brain gets inflamed, I think anyone that watched a movie or read about concussion knows that once the brain is inflamed, it can stay inflamed for 17 years from one incident. And that can lead to, as you saw in that movie, mood disorders, very aggressive attacks, and even suicide. And that all came from repeated trauma to the head that causes inflammation. So that part of the science is proven, but you would have resistance, obviously, because the NFL would not want to admit that. So some of the other things I'll quickly mention, there's a substance called N-Acetylcysteine. I mention that because NAC is a better source of cysteine than trying to take it, and that this cysteine is the rate limiting step to make glutathione. And for
Oh, Dr. Thomas,
yes,
your screen, are you sharing your screen? Okay, there we go.
okay.
Yes.
So I turned it off.
Oh, okay.
So glutathione is made in every single cell, and that is the major antioxidant that if it's not present, the inflammation then affects the cell stops working. And if it's a brain cell, once the brain cell is not functioning, once you get to 80% of that particular nucleus or tract not working, you're going to have an overt indication of that disease based on the location.
Mhm.
So to have a better antioxidant in the system can actually prevent your body from reaction to toxins or deficiencies that lead to mental health disorders. One of the other, I guess this is a psychiatric society. I mean, they include, Bacopa, valerian root, milk thistle, and all of these are now in the general psychiatric literature. So they are moving to that. And this particular one shows that there's been data showing a negative correlation between OCD symptoms, severity, and vitamin D deficiency. They also looked at B12, folate. And so there are nutrients that, including NAC, that when you give the supplement, they have done studies to show it improved the symptoms of depression, anxiety, and in this case, I'm reading about obsessive compulsive disease. So it's now, no question that we know that nutrition has bearing, and we could go through each area because with carbs, there's polysaccharides that there are, thousands and thousands of polysaccharides that coat the surface of cells as part of the neurotransmitters or cell-to-cell communication. When those are damaged, you don't have the right communication, you're going to have a negative result. So every area, I've covered the carbs, the proteins, the essential fatty acids, the minerals, calcium, chromium, iodine, iron. I mentioned folate, B12, selenium, and zinc are also there. Because, for an example, let's pick on zinc. If you don't have zinc, then the metalloprotein that's in your gut that removes heavy metals will not function. And so now you have heavy metals floating around your body, and that can affect your brain. And in fact, we know for a fact, as part of its chemical structure, things like mercury and aluminum are neurotoxins. So they're in, in the environment. And if anyone, wants to get in detail, there's a book called The 100-Year Lie, where they detail when certain chemicals were released and when you had not only, physical health, but also mental health problems that correspond to the fact that they passed legislation to say certain chemicals were generally accepted as safe, which are not safe. And then they're now in the environment as well as GMO foods. So these are like an introduction to the fact that, in the medical literature, it's proven And again, Indian Journal of Psychiatry, Nutrition, Depression, and Mental Illness. It's a whole, I'm gonna say 10-page paper that outlines exactly what studies have been done and the connection between nutrition and depression. And there's one other paper which I'll just quote. So this one, I believe it's in, this is out of China. So they did a rather large study that proved vitamin D supplementation improves anxiety, but not depression symptoms in patients with vitamin D deficiency. So it's an epidemiological study that looked into this. They followed them for 6 months, and the trial indicated that I found it very interesting that they did not improve with vitamin D depression. On the other hand, we know that people who live in Alaska have 6 months with very little sunlight, and they have a high degree of depression during that period of time. So, the studies are, we can't say everything about nutrition and mental health is completed, but I will say at least compared to when I was in medical school, the research has begun. There's an open mind of both, physicians and other practitioners, and I would say to anyone that there's so much evidence that, for an example, that green tea is not only helpful in this area we're talking about, not directly as a treatment for any particular mental health, but definitely as something that supports your body's immune system and prevents cancer, that definitely should be considered one of the number one things you can add to your diet and improve your health. At this point,
Fantastic.
I want to open it up to.
Well, we're going to have certain. Ms. Serena is going to take just a few minutes to go a little bit deeper with herbs, Dr. Thomas.
Okay, good.
And then we'll have our question and answer right after that.
Okay.
So thank you so very much. Though, hold your questions, folks. Jot them down, and we're going to do a quick transfer of sharing here, and we'll pick up on this. So, Miss Serena, are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so let me find your document here so we get it in the share position.
Okay. Thank you, Michael. Okay, so while you look for that, hi everyone. And this evening, I will be talking about a few herbs that will be very good for your brain health. So the brain is just a 3-pound organ and is the most complex part of the human body. And this organ secretes powerful chemicals to create extraordinary changes in the body and mind. Unfortunately, Alzheimer's disease and other cognitive related conditions are on the rise. So, but there is good news. We have herbs to the rescue. So this evening, I'm going to share a couple of those. And I want to start out with the first herb, which is called Bacopa. And Bacopa is one of the best herbs for brain health. It protects brain cells and it increases brain chemicals that's associated with learning, with memory. It also helps the left and the right side of the brain to work harmoniously. Bacopa is an antioxidant and is also an anti-inflammatory herb. Basically, Bacopa is a cerebral tonic and it protects the cells in the brain. Bacopa supports forgetfulness in the short term and it enhances memory in the long term. So also Bacopa is a fantastic herb to use daily because it will help with mental clarity. It helps with retention. It helps with focusing. It helps with all of these conditions. So it's a very good herb to have daily on a daily basis. So that's it for Bacopa. Another thing about Bacopa that I want to mention is that we all know about the ADHD symptoms that we find a lot in children and even in some adults. Well, interestingly, some studies were done, and Bacopa was able to help reduce those symptoms. There were studies done with kids, 31 children aged 6 through 12, and they were given Bacopa extract for 6 months, and it reduced their ADHD symptoms. And another study was done with 120 children who was taking a herbal blend which included Bacopa, and it improved their attention, it improved their cognition, and also the impulse control. So that's it for Bacopa. And the next herb that is very good for the brain is rosemary. It's interesting because I was talking to someone about rosemary and they never thought that rosemary has something to do with the brain. But yeah, rosemary studies have shown that rosemary can enhance memory by up to 75%.
Wow.
For me, that's a high percentage. And rosemary is shown in recent years to break down acetylcholine, which is a brain chemical that's important for thinking, concentration, and memory. So rosemary will prevent the breakdown of that brain chemical. Also, rosemary contains compounds that will help to protect the brain from damage caused by free radicals. So as you can see, rosemary is not only a herb good for the hair, for the skin, but it's also good for your brain. And the third herb I want to share with you this evening is Gotu Kola. Gotu Kola is another excellent herb for the brain. It helps to support brain function. Gotu Kola has traditionally been used in cases of mental fatigue. It has been used for anxiety, depression, memory loss, and even insomnia. Okay, and then another interesting fact about Gotu Kola is that modern medical researchers report that this plant has the ability to create new nerve cells. Wow, that was interesting. And the way Gotu Kola does this is that Gotu Kola activates the release of a brain protein. And this brain protein acts as a fertilizer for your brain, and it encourages new brain cell formation. I think that is very awesome what Gotu Kola can do. So in human studies, Gotu Kola increased calmness, contentment, and alertness by 100%. That is significant. That is significant. Also, Gotu Kola increases brain plasticity, and it facilitates communication between brain cells. Gotu Kola is also regarded for its ability to improve oxygenation and circulation to the brain. And the reason why circulation to the brain is so important is because a steady flow of blood to the brain delivers oxygen and nutrients, and it also helps to remove carbon dioxide, toxins, and other waste products. So these are 3 herbs. There are more, but I just shared these 3 with you. And Michael, do I have time to share the brain tonic drink?
Yes. How do you have that?
I'm just going to do it.
Oh, okay. Okay, sure. Yes. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see you.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, let me put this over here. Okay. After doing all this research on the herbs, I just thought it would be so nice to create a good blend, herbal blend, or let's call it a herbal tonic for the brain, which you can drink every day and will help to keep your brain healthy. And you don't have to wait till you're suffering from any memory problems or cognitive problems to start doing this. It's better to prevent, right? But if you have any problems like those, definitely start taking this. So the herbs I'm going to use here are the 3 that I mentioned plus an extra 2. So I have rosemary, I have Bacopa, which we spoke about. I have ginkgo. Ginkgos are also very good herb for the brain. We have the Gotu Kola, and we also have sage. Sage is also very good. It supports the brain and its function. So I'm going to show you how to do this. So it's very easy. All you need to do, all you're going to need are these herbs. And if you don't have all of them, just use whatever you have. Let's say you have rosemary and sage, then you can just do that. So I'll use a half teaspoon of each herb. Rosemary, then we have Bacopa here. Then we have ginkgo. Half tablespoon of each one of these. And then we have the Gotu Kola. And we have sage. And then what we'll do, we'll add some hot distilled water. We'll add some hot distilled water to this. And we just let this steep for like, I like to let my teas infuse for an hour or 2 or even overnight because I like it really strong. So we'll do that. But I have another one made. This is another one that I made, exactly the same herb that I used. So after your tea is made, it's been infused for an hour or 2 or even more, then you just strain it. You strain it. Okay, and then what you'll do for this awesome tonic, you will add black cherry juice concentrate. And the reason why I like these 2 juices, I selected them because I found out that cherry also is a very powerful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory, and is loaded with brain boosting capabilities. So I'll put 1 ounce of the black cherry, and pomegranate is also very good for the brain. 1 ounce of that, and then we'll stir it up. And your brain tonic is ready. Now, I like to add ginger honey to it, just like a tablespoon or so, because it just tastes better, and the ginger enhances the herbs and the circulation. So I'll add a little bit. But this is totally optional. You don't have to add the ginger honey if you don't want to. But this tonic is already made. And I'll have a taste and let you know what it's like.
Is it? Yeah, my wife is saying that we're going to make that.
This is very good.
Yeah, 1 tablespoon of each herb. That's right, Sarah.
Mm-hmm. It's delicious.
Can this be
and
drinking?
It's very good for your brain.
Can I take this every day?
Every single day. Yeah. If you want to keep your brain healthy and functioning for years to come, yes, every day. And that's it for me,
How
guys.
long
Thank
can
you
I-
so much.
So
How long can I keep this for? Like, how long can I store this concoction for?
I suggest you do it daily, or at least if you're going to store it, then at least for a day or 2 at most, and you will put it in the
Okay.
fridge. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
thank you
So
so
do
much.
I take this as a shot or just drink a glass?
You can drink a glass.
Okay.
Yeah, you can drink a glass. Very good.
All
Sorry
right.
you guys can't taste this.
We want to thank
Okay, thank you so much.
for interjecting on herbs. Thank you so very much, Dr. Thomas. One of the things that I would really love for you to share with our audience is the story of Michael, the student. I don't know if you feel comfortable sharing that or not. Didn't clear it with you first, but just as an anecdotal part of the experience.
Certainly.
Yes.
So this situation was shared with me by a patient I was seeing. I was explaining to her that I read a study out of, I think it was Colorado years ago, that they had an improvement in their students when they took all the fast food and pop and stuff out of their schools. And that I thought that that was a major cause of problems. And she said, yeah, I know. And so I had to ask her, I said, well, hold it. I've been reading on this stuff, for years, looking up studies and doing this. As a teacher, how do you know? You read a study about it or what? She says, no. We had this kid that Michael was a kid that caused so much trouble. Every teacher every year was praying that they would not get Michael in their class. Because whatever teacher had Michael, it was nothing but a disciplinary problem every day, not so much, teaching the kids, but dealing with his bad behavior. So the principal, in his wisdom, figured out that since they had a full cafeteria, they would actually save money if they quit buying prepared food and had a staff and bought the food and prepared it. So they did that, and within 3 months, they had no more disciplinary problems out of Michael. So bad Michael had become, a better student. And one of the things the chef did, we use a lot of herbs and spices so the food tastes well. She made a special pot of greens just for the teachers. But my patient, who was a teacher, relayed that, she kept a class. I mean, she had a student with her at lunchtime to do an assignment or something. And, the kid asked, well, what's that on your plate? I don't have that. And it was greens. So the kid tasted it, and then he ran off and told, all the students in his little group that he had the most wonderful vegetable greens. And although the chef was pleased to make it for the teachers, she was a little peeved because she wasn't prepared to be making it for 200 students. But students had not been exposed to these vegetables. And once they were exposed, they liked it. So unlike some experience where, you think the kid won't eat it, you have to introduce the kids to it. And it changed his behavior. They no longer said, oh, he has ADHD or, he's on the spectrum. And just all of the alphabets they were throwing at the student, a significant amount, I'm not going to say 100%, a significant amount was improved with changing their diet. And, for a long time, I had her name, the school, with a Post-it note on my wall with the intention of calling her and following up. But of course, I don't lost contact with her. But that was one of the stories that went right along with the studies I'd actually read. So to see a teacher who had experienced it, to me was very enlightening that by changing the diet, you can do improve things tremendously. So that pretty much, was the, I guess, story when I'm gonna say when my age group was kids, when we had cereal, we put sugar on the Frosted Flakes. And so it wasn't really good enough until you could scrape the bottom of the bowl and you're getting sugar. Well, I like to point out that, everything has to be in balance. So in nature, there's a balance with sugar and fiber in there. So I think the biggest deficit in the world is the lack of fiber in the diet. And fiber is the thing that also helps get toxins out of your system because it binds them. So we have a long way to go because we're ruled by the media, who is ruled by the advertisers, who only want your money and don't have your best health, as a concern. And it will take every individual, as happened, in case you don't know, in Florida, the soccer moms noticed that the kids weren't having a good reaction to Gatorade with the artificial sweetener. They, told the manager of the grocery stores, we don't want this. We want this. We don't want artificial sweetener. And they came out with G2 within a year and a half. So it by them not buying it, it affected their bottom line. And they actually made something arguably was really that much healthier. But at least you could see that they were able to influence the manufacturer, by having a dialogue with the purchaser at the stores. And likewise, we need to go to the manager's store and hold up something that says, this is GMO, and then say, put it back. We want things that are not GMO. So you have a greater ability because you have purchasing power. You just have to direct your comments to the buyers, to the purchasers, and to the companies, and let them know you prefer not to have so much artificial sweetener, coloring, and so forth. Because in fact, that is what's affecting the kids. And we're really dealing with, no one wants to say it, these kids are being poisoned. These kids are being poisoned. The rise in autism is from poisoning. They don't want to say it, but thimerosal, which is mercury, cannot possibly be compared. So if you eat tuna and you get 25 micrograms of mercury, the metalloproteins in your gut take that toxic metal out of your system. If you get a shot with 25 micrograms of mercury in it, you don't have the metalloproteins. The body's mechanism to get rid of that neurotoxin are bypassed, and that's the beginning of accumulation of heavy metals in the brain, which leads to, for example, with aluminum, that's been found with people with Alzheimer's. So Alzheimer's is from toxins that are in the environment, as well as, in the last 20 years, why did the cancer rate double in children? So it's so much that's known, but yet it's shielded from public view. And, like I say, those soccer moms, have to raise their voice and say, we don't want that. And, the last parting comment is that leads to, you also have to raise your voice and say, we don't want the mental poisoning that is now being piped through the media, in my opinion, and affecting the kids by presenting them with tremendous amount of violence and other distractions that keep them from focusing on learning. It keeps them from focusing on, normal interactions. And I'm sure you've seen in restaurants a whole table of people who aren't talking to each other, but they're chatting with somebody else on their text with the phone. So that also changes the family dynamics and changes, a lot of things that lead to a healthier mental state are being reduced by toxins that are in the environment, and also by what the media is presenting. So I think that pretty much wraps that up.
Okay, thank you so very much. I know that there are a few questions for Dr. Thomas and perhaps for Serena, if you want to put them in chat or just unmute and ask a question.
I have a question for Dr. Thomas.
Yes. Go
Hi,
ahead.
Dr. Thomas. This is Jeannie. I was reading what you said about B12, and I was taking a liquid B12 under my tongue for a while, but then my doctor gave me a test, and I had extremely high amounts of the B12, and so she said to stop taking it. But then recently I found out that all that means is it's not getting into my cell, that B12 was maybe in the blood, but not going into my cells. So I was wondering if there's anything you can say about that.
Yes. So the question is, the liquid B12, did it increase your circulating B12 but didn't get into the cells? So the water-soluble vitamins will be taken up into the cells as it's needed. If you have extra, it will, float around. But the way to look at it is, what they say is a normal amount is a maintenance source. So, you know, I'm thinking of, this is probably a silly example, but it's okay to drive around a city with a half a tank of gas. But what if you're going from Chicago to California? So what they're saying is average and okay is not average and okay. I didn't get to it, but I'll mention it now. The cells go through a cycle. There are 4 steps in the cycle. You have G1, S phase synthesis, G2 for development, and then M for mitosis. If there's something wrong with the cell, it goes from G1 to G0 and it's held there. Well, you need B12 to fix DNA damage. So any patient that has like MS or any medical condition where they need more repair, you don't want the average amount of B12 circulating. You want a high enough amount that the repair that you need can be done. And so, you know, the average person, I might give, you know, once a week, once a month, 1,000 micrograms of vitamin B12 as a shot to try to help them absorb it better. But the individuals who've had MS or any other condition where their body needs to repair itself more, I might give them a B12 shot every week for a month or 2. And what they have found is, I guess the best way to put it, your body keeps a record of what needs to be repaired. Just like your house, for an example. You could walk through your house and you got 10 projects you need to do, but given the amount of money or energy or skill set, you might only get to 1 project and you keep a list of the other 9. So your body knows what needs to be repaired, but it might not get to it because you have vitamin D deficiency, B vitamins, any other nutrients, including minerals. For an example, magnesium is needed in over 300 different reactions in your body. So since most people are low, then the amount of repair that's done is extremely limited. When you get more, the body can then repair more. One thing I want to pair with that is, when do you think the body repairs itself? So there's a cell cycle, there's circadian rhythm. There are 3 other clocks that the body has that have to sync and mesh. You know, it's like, this might be dating myself, but back in the day when you had a ignition coil, you had to check the timing. So if the timing was off, then when the valves opened and when the spark plug fired was out of sync, and then your car could be, you know, unusable. So these 3 clocks that are in your body have to sync because there's a time for healing. That time for healing depends on these clocks. And the answer to the question I was intimating was the best healing occurs between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. by most of the studies that were done. So if you're up looking at late night TV and don't go to bed till 3 or 4 in the morning, you've missed the healing for that day. And I dare say of the, I think you got 29 participants, none of them have a car that can be fixed while you're still driving it. They all have to be, you know, taken off the road and be at rest. So what we have to realize is that sleep and rest, the level of sleep, you know, deep sleep is required. And it may not really be appreciated, but even when I used to do circumcision, I would tell the mom, hey, your baby's gonna be irritable and it's gonna go into a deep sleep. Why? It's just been stressed. So now the baby's brain is putting it into a repair mode because stress has occurred and it's not gonna sleep the same. And then a day or 2 later, it'll slowly get back into able to go into REM sleep. But initially it doesn't go into REM sleep. And therefore, you know, it's in a deeper sleep trying to repair. So as we know more about these cycles, you know, there's 3 clocks, 3 cycles, there's a time for repair. And if you had the right nutrition, your body will start repairing stuff that it had put off for years. And, you know, just like you could keep a record in your house of repairs that need to be done, believe me, the body is even greater. It knows exactly what needs to be done, and it prioritizes it, according to what's most important. So I would only wish I could go back in time to not have the sleep deprivation. I went from 135 to 293 pounds from when I was a first year medical student till about 10 years in practice. That's over 160 pounds. And that's when I was, in my peak in practice, on call every third night. Oh, for the holidays, up every other night. And I had no idea that it was sleep deprivation, that caused the cortisol to be up, that caused irritability. I mean, it's a whole list I could go through. But knowing what I would know now, I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be a solo practitioner as an OB-GYN doctor. And maybe that's why I had to stop now, because for my body to heal itself, I need proper sleep that's, not interrupted every night by phone calls at 2 or 3 in the morning. And likewise, that was my profession, but we choose, because we look at electronics before we go to sleep, that messes up your natural rhythm for your body to heal itself, or we don't have the right nutrition. So it's a host of factors that, I present. I call the book I'm finishing this month is called Scarless Healing. It's the proven factors, because your body is designed to heal without a scar, and it is able to recycle. In other words, the cell cycle diet says put all of the things your body needs to heal itself in rotation into your diet. You don't have to take everything every day. You can take a holiday from certain things. Which reminds me, if you look at my, phony background picture, that has the elements. In other words, the sun, the surf, it's relaxing. And so the most important thing I would say, in addition to nutrition, I would say is stress reduction. By having fun, doing something that's fun, let's call that vitamin F. You need vitamin F every day. Okay, you could take a vacation from vitamin F, maybe not every day. But if you could, I would say you need to have, even if it's 10 minutes of vitamin F, have fun every day. And that is a nutrient that is totally, I think, undervalued. At least, so far with me, that was something that, I've had a lot to do in terms of practice. Fun fit in, on the weekend. Wait a minute, you have stress every day. You need meditation or something to relieve stress every day. So that's a whole nother way of looking at mental health with mental vitamins and rejecting mental poisoning, which is part of how your body can heal itself. And I think just about any condition, I think everybody here probably cut their hand in the kitchen. And if you look at it years later, you can barely see the scar, because the body's job is to heal itself. And it does a great job, as long as, like as a kid, quit picking the scab. So not having the right nutrient is like asking for it not to heal. So I like to, conclude with that and say we got to focus on the right nutrition, the right fun, and the other vitamin F I would just introduce is called forgiveness. But that's a story for another day. But that is equally as important as the physical vitamins we've been talking about.
Yes.
Thank you.
Dr. Thomas, this was awesome. I do have a comment to make, and Teresa, can you hear me okay? I don't hear Teresa. Can you answer?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh,
I can hear you.
Oh, very good. So, Dr.
I can hear you.
Oh, very good. Thank you, Teresa. Dr. Thomas, I wanted to introduce Teresa to you tonight. She's a lady that I met at a Whole Foods store just maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. And she had mentioned some issues that were bothering her. And she looked at my cart in Whole Foods, and I think she was a little confused because she didn't see anything from a box or a bottle or anything. Everything was fresh veggies and fruits. And so we started talking about this. And Teresa, I don't want to give away any of your story, but
Okay.
yeah, but just tell us a little bit about what you did and what changes you made after our conversation and what's happened since that time.
Well, I've been basically trying to eat raw because I'm suffering from a mental illness where when I can't remember nothing, I have an anxiety attack.
Yes,
But since I've been trying to eat raw, I'm doing a little better.
fantastic. So within a matter, in fact, Teresa, you called me, I think maybe 3 or 4 days later, pretty excited about the fact that you were
Right?
feeling a little bit different, right? So,
Yeah, I feel a lot better.
so Dr. Thomas, the question I have for you is how quickly, because you mentioned at the beginning of your presentation that that's one of the first areas that we seem to see where deficiency can make a negative impact. And then does it work the same way on the positive end pretty quickly?
Well, it like your suggestion, it depends on what has to be healed,
Yes.
and also it depends on how long the problem has been there. So as you can imagine, a problem that's been there for a significant amount of time, where there are nerve fibers that are damaged, that's going to take a significant amount of time to heal. And one of the things that helps heal the brain, believe it or not, is exercise.
Mm.
The big muscles in your legs, gluteus, and so forth actually produce what is called brain-derived neurotrophic factor,
Yes.
BDNF. That helps your brain cells to make new connections and to regrow. So you have neuroplasticity. Because when I was in school, they said, well, the brain develops by 25, you got what you got and it's down here from there. Now we know that the memory in the hippocampus, I like to jokingly say you have to learn how to feed the hippo, because the hippocampus with the right nutrients, within 5 years, you can totally regrow those nerve cells there and you can make new connections. But you got to have the right nutrients, and it may not be in the fast food or the McDonald's or the pizza or the stuff traditionally, we eat. It may be, like you said, in the a wide variety of raw foods. And in fact, I would challenge everybody, write down the number of fruit and vegetables you eat per month. Some people have 3 or 4 vegetables they like, that's it. 1 or 2 fruits, that's it. They're under 10. So I would say it should be, a minimum 30 to 40 different fruit and vegetables that you should challenge yourself to eat, because there's something different in everything. And just because you don't know what it is, doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. So whether it's the fact that we now know, well, let me ask the question. I guess they can put it in the chat. You can reverse your age, they're now saying, by 20 years, because the energy of every single cell comes from your mitochondria. So if you're taking in nutrients that improve your mitochondria, you get better energy. And if energy was a problem leading to whatever disease you had, whether it's Alzheimer's, Parkinsonism, memory loss, or whatever, and you now have the energy, now the body can fix itself, number one. Number two, the mitochondria are in charge of, if those cells need to die, it's called apoptosis, then those cells are instructed to die off. But the new cells that grow in, because you had the right nutrition, are normal, healthy cells, because you don't want abnormal cells to keep reproducing. So things that increase your nitric oxide, and in fact, I think it was 98, but I forgot the year, 3 doctors got the prize because they figured out nitric oxide, which is a gas, is basically a signaling molecule. And that's what determines if your blood vessels are open or not. And if they're not open, you got high blood pressure. And so some of the things they have figured out, we can take certain extracts from beets and other substances and put them in, a tablet form. And within weeks, your energy level goes up completely. Or they have something called PQQ, which I can't pronounce
Yes,
the name, but that helps you multiply the number of mitochondria.
that's right. Especially in the brain too, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. So you can't fix something if you don't have the energy to fix it.
Right.
Right.
But that's why, I do testing. So I find out, hey, you're deficient in selenium, glutathione, all these different minerals and vitamins. We have to fix that first. So I call that part of it. You have to fix the foundation. I know you want a jacuzzi or a new kitchen, but as your contractor, I'm going in a basement and I'm gonna look and see your whole foundation has cracks. This building might need to be torn down. So rather than start off with the jacuzzi upstairs, we need to fix the foundation. And that's what nutrition is. It's the foundation for everything that follows. And we have to begin to, look at that as an aspect. I tell people every day when I'm in the cafeteria, I go there and I get a couple of eggs. And I see people saying, I want just egg whites. I'm like, the study proved that the yolk of eggs was good for you 5 years ago. 9 or 10 years ago, that's when they told people, oh, that increased your cholesterol. No, it doesn't. Most of the cholesterol in your body makes. It's not from what you eat. So there's so much myth that's going on. And then when the study proves the previous thing was wrong, it really doesn't get publicized unless it's about a drug. So there's millions of people eating egg whites who've been tricked into eating egg whites so they don't have choline. And so since they're missing choline, their brain is not going to be repaired. So, the phospholipids that make up the membranes that's in your brain has to come from food. And so you must eat the wide variety of food. And I'll leave it at that to say that if we find you're deficient, then we know what deficiency to treat. Sometimes we can just go through someone's diet and it's obvious that their choice of fruit and vegetables is so narrow, they can't possibly have the right nutrients in their system. And those are the ones we say, let's start with supplements right now as we try to improve your choice of foods. And as I think, I read or someone said, go around the periphery of the store, because in the middle of the store is all the processed food, and the whole foods are around the periphery, around the edges. So shop the edges. How can I put it? Once the saying goes, once you know better, you should do better. But you're being
Okay, I'm gonna ask you one question,
Yes,
doctor.
yes.
People tell me that I shouldn't eat. You shouldn't eat bell peppers, red bell peppers, green bell peppers, tomatoes. Is that true?
Well, like I said, there's a lot of theories about one or two aspects of food, but when you look at the whole, it's like, where's the study that shows it's detrimental? Not just, my opinion or somebody else's opinion. Did they do a study where they found that, eating bell peppers caused a problem? Is there a study that says eating lectins causes a problem?
Right.
So the way I have to approach it as a scientist is I can't go on one person saying it. I need to say, well, let me see the study. On the other hand, I'll tell you this every day of the week. If everybody, in the last 15 years, my average patient's vitamin D level was 17. Even though they say the normal range is 30 to 100, my patient's range is 17. I don't need any other studies, because there's no study that proves that it's helpful to be deficient in vitamin D. In fact, all of the studies show some degree of cancer prevention. Every single immune cell needs vitamin D for it to process the antigens right. And I'm so appalled at the media who will not tell the people the truth that there's no vaccine that can ever work if your immune system is not optimized. You cannot have a dysfunctional immune system and have a vaccine that works. So the first thing they should be saying is, let's tune up your immune system with proper nutrition. There's been no, widespread discussion of that. You might hear here and there about, zinc, that reduces your chance of getting COVID, or not that much, or, this mineral or that mineral. But it's absolutely clear from every single study that over 80% of people are deficient in vitamin D. And with that deficiency, it leads to a list of problems, including mental health disorders, physical disorders, cancer. It's a unending list. And so every single person should supplement their vitamin D until their level, in my opinion, is close to 100. And you could Google on your phone and have 50 references immediately on your phone that support it. And the first thing you're going to hear is, hey, that might be a high amount. You might get toxic. And so I point out to my colleagues, you've been in practice 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Have you ever had a patient ever in your life in the hospital because they had vitamin D toxicity? No. Have you ever known any other doctor that had a person with vitamin toxicity? No. But over 80%. And in fact, worldwide, vitamin D is the pandemic for the last 50 years that allowed influenza, COVID, and all of these other infectious causes, because with the proper amount of vitamin D, no one would, be totally sick from any virus. Because when you take vitamin D, the antiviral peptides are produced. There's over 300 of them that kill the virus or make it so it doesn't affect you. So that's like the foundation, which is once you get the foundation, then you can add on to it. I totally enjoyed the presentation about the herbs. I would just co-sign and say half those herbs were mentioned. I've been taking those for years, but it's outside it's not in the medical literature yet.
Right. That's right. That's right.
So each person has to do some research, including the doctor, and then, make a decision about taking a supplement that, may help them, and changing their diet, such as I'm struggling myself, 20 years of Pizza Friday. So I cut that out for the last 10 years. Now I got grandkids. Guess what's happening on Friday? Oh my God. So, I have to step away because my habit is to pick up a piece of the pizza.
Yeah,
so I'm not saying I can never have pizza, but if I go back to, what I was doing before, then I personally am going to have more health challenges.
That's
So
right.
I encourage everybody to look at your own situation, come up with what you need to do to make a plan to be as healthy as possible. And this is one of the, a great forum for that. And I thank you, Mike.
Yes, sir. Thank you so very much for sharing this time with us. And I do want to highlight, Dr. Thomas, I don't know if you wanted to share your office number, if anyone wanted to reach out to you. You can put that in for us. Yeah, that'd be fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I do want also just a reminder, I did put a link in our chat, and that link will get you to this particular slide that I'm sharing with you here, just ways for you to click on the links that are in that document so you can either reach out to us with additional questions through Facebook. If you're not yet a member of the Natural Health Meetup, please join us there for up-to-date information. Our next is the second Tuesday in April, and we are actually going to be focusing on exercise in a rather unique way. So look out for the notices and the invitation. And as always, be healthier tomorrow than you are today, every single day. Let us bow our heads for prayer. Dear God, we just want to thank you so much for this awesome opportunity to learn and to share with each other. We're asking God each person that's here, whatever their health needs might be or other needs as they may, that you will find a way to bless them and to bring them the healing and the needs that they have at this time so that they can praise you and allow us all to celebrate together. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. So have a good night, folks, and thank you so very much for attending and look forward to
Good presentation, Serena
Thank you.
and Doc. Really, really enjoyed this one.
Thank you.
This one was a
Absolutely.
good one.
Thank you.
Yeah, the Dr. Thomas put his information in the chat window. We'll leave it up there so that you can grab that before you leave.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you too.
Including the 5 herbs. I didn't write them all down.
Oh, let's see. I think we can go back. The 5.
Bacopa, Rosemary, Gotu Kola.
Yeah, it is rose. I can tell you. It is rosemary, bacopa, ginkgo, Gotu Kola, and sage.
That the one before sage, Goku Kola?
Yeah, Gotu Kola. Yeah, that cola is Kola.
Yeah, go to.
Kola.
Oh,
And Gotu is Gotu.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Okay.
typed them in.
Gotu Kola.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Dr. Thomas typed them in for us. They're in the chat window now.
Thank you.
Oh yeah, great.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, go be healthier tomorrow.
And there's nothing like screenshot because then you save it,
Yeah, that's right.
right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
Hit the 3 dots and it says save the chat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can save the chat on your end too. Wow. Thank you so much again, and look forward to seeing everybody out next month.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Have a good night.